Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to Podcastage. Today I'm back with another edition of the Versus series, where I compare one of the most popular microphones on the market against the new kid on the block. The microphones we're comparing are the Shure SM57 against the Beyerdynamic TG I51. Also, in the sake of full disclosure, I do need to let you know that Beyerdynamic did send me this microphone free of charge for the sake of making a review on it. And now, before we get to any of the tests, let's jump to an overhead shot and discuss the build quality of both of the mics. Both of the microphones feel outstanding and extremely robust. They both feature metal bodies as well as metal mesh grills. They do have quite different form factors though. The SM57 is quite a bit longer, while the TG I51 is much more rotund and short. The TG I51 has a built-in mounting system, while the SM57 uses a standard microphone clip. They do both have the XLR ports on the rear of the microphone. And if you care, the SM57 is made in Mexico or China, and the Beyerdynamic is made in Germany. Now let's plug both microphones in, and we'll start with a blind comparison. We'll start with microphone A. This is microphone A, and this is how it sounds. Now we are on microphone B. This is microphone B, and here is how this sounds. Back on microphone A. For both microphones, I'm recording simultaneously, and I am about 4 inches away from the microphone. Now we are on microphone B, and the gain for both microphones does differ depending on the sensitivity of the microphone. Back on microphone A one more time. Make sure to leave a comment letting me know which microphone you think is which. Now we're on microphone B, and also let me know which of the microphones was your favorite. And now I'll be revealing which microphone is which in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Microphone A is the Shure SM57, while microphone B is the Beyerdynamic TG I51. Now let's jump to the next part of the video. First up, we have the Shure SM57, which costs around $100. That is connected directly to the Focusrite 18i 22nd Gen, gain set at around 430, recording 24-bit 48 kHz. This has a cardioid polar pattern, a frequency response of 40 Hz to 15 kHz, a sensitivity of around -56 dB, and an impedance of 310 ohms. And secondly, we have the Beyerdynamic TG I51. This costs around $130. That is also connected directly to the Focusrite. My gain is set at around 3 or 315. This also has a cardioid polar pattern, a frequency response of 33 Hz to 19 kHz, a sensitivity of around -51.4 dB, and an impedance of 600 ohms. Now I am spinning around the SM57 to 90 degrees so you can hear the off-axis rejection and coloration. Continuing around to 180 degrees, here's how the rear of the mic sounds. Continuing around to the second 90-degree angle, here we are, and then rotating and ending at the front of the microphone. And now I am spinning around the TG I51 to 90 degrees so you can hear the off-axis rejection and coloration on this microphone. Continuing around to 180 degrees, here's the rear of the microphone. Continuing around to the second 90-degree angle, here we are, and then rotating and ending at the front of the microphone. Now I am speaking on the SM57 while typing on a keyboard with Gateron blue switches to see how much of my voice versus how much of the keyboard it picks up. And here is the exact same test on the Beyerdynamic TG I51. Now I am right on top of the Shure SM57, and here is how it sounds. And now I am right on top of the Beyerdynamic, and here is how it sounds. Now I'm about 3 inches away from the 57 with it pointed at the corner of my mouth, and here is how it sounds. And here I am about 3 inches off of the Beyerdynamic with it pointed at the corner of my mouth, and here is how it sounds. About 1 foot away from the SM57, about 1 foot away from the Beyerdynamic, about 2 feet away from the SM57, and about 2 feet away from the Beyerdynamic. And finally, about 4 feet away from the SM57, and about 4 feet away from the Beyerdynamic TG I51. And just for good measure, I want to test the handling noise rejection of both microphones. Right here, I recommend turning down your speakers because we are going to be doing a plosive test, and both of these microphones will be terrible at it. First, the SM57. Please bring pizza pronto. Please bring pizza pronto. Please bring pizza pronto. And now the Beyer. Please bring pizza pronto. Please bring pizza pronto. Please bring pizza pronto. I have got a couple mics that we will test, and I will find out which of these two mics is best. Not the best, but that take will do. I can't speak, I can't sing. What can I do? That take will have to do. It's as good as it's good. It's as. Let's just go to the conclusion and find out which of these I think is the best. And the winner of this Versus series is, drumroll please, different for different applications, but for vocals, the Shure SM57, and for instruments, the Beyerdynamic TG I51. What an absolute cop-out. And first up on the electric guitar, I found myself enjoying the Beyerdynamic ever so slightly more than the SM57. It is undeniable that the 57 sounds exciting, it's extremely aggressive and in your face, and for the rhythm guitar, I did find that really pleasing. But once I got to the upper register of the guitar, the 57 became a bit too aggressive, and the overtones to my ears just became overwhelming, and the Beyerdynamic offered a much more balanced and pleasing sound for the lead guitar as well as the rhythm sound. So that's why I picked the Beyerdynamic over the 57, but for many people who want that aggressive sound, the 57 will still be the right pick for you. Then on the acoustic, the TG I51 was the winner for me again. The Beyer just offered a much more controlled low mid section, and that led to the acoustic sounding much more balanced and realistic. The SM57, on the other hand, did have a lot of low mids and came across extremely punchy, so it depends on what kind of sound you're going for. If you want that really punchy sound, 57 would be the route to go. In my opinion, if you want the more balanced sound with a more controlled low midsection, the Beyer would be the route to go for the acoustic. Next up for singing, I think that the SM57 wins out over the TG I51. The Beyerdynamic comes across a little bit more mid-focused with a touch of airiness to it, but when I switched to the SM57, the vocals just opened up and became so much more exciting and alive sounding, and because of that, I just had to pick the SM57 as the winner. To my ears, the SM57 just sounds more in line with what I would be looking for in a vocal microphone over the Beyerdynamic. I'm not saying the SM57 is the ideal vocal microphone, but of these two, it just sounds more like what I would be looking for a singing vocal microphone. And finally, for spoken word, again, I think the SM57 is the winner here because compared to the 57, the Beyer sounds a little bit weak in the bass section, and also the mids come across a little bit congested. The 57 just has a little bit more open and natural sounding mids. You do get a little bit clearer treble for spoken word, which I think is going to be appealing because it makes the articulation, the enunciation more clear, and if you want it, you can get that voice of God bass if you so desire. I know a lot of people hate it, but a lot of people absolutely love it. So to conclude my thoughts here, if you're recording instruments, I think that the Beyerdynamic TG I51 is a great addition to a microphone locker because it does offer something so different to the SM57. It doesn't have that same aggressive characteristic to it. It doesn't sound like whatever you're recording is angry. It offers a more neutral, a more balanced sound, a more calming sound. If I could be so hippie in my description, angry SM57, calming Beyerdynamic. That's how I characterize the two microphones. I don't think that either of them is going to be inherently better for that application. It's really going to come down to what kind of tone you're trying to achieve with your recording, and that's going to dictate which of these microphones is right for your instrument. And then we get to the application of vocals, and if you're looking for a microphone specific to that application, I really don't think the Beyerdynamic fits that bill. I don't think it's flattering in terms of its frequency response, doesn't do great with plosives. The 57 also terrible with plosives, but it does have a more flattering response in terms of singing and spoken word. So if you are looking for an all-arounder microphone that works on your instruments, but can also offer really great sounds for vocals, I think the SM57 is the route to go. But if you're looking for a more balanced and a smooth-sounding microphone for your instruments, that's where I think the Beyerdynamic would come into play and be the right choice. But if you have the money and the space, I say why not both? They offer very different things and they both sound great in certain applications. If you can afford it, more tools to work with. That's the kind of world and studio that I want to work in. Give me all the microphones to pick from. All right, that is all that I've got for you today. If you found this video fun, interesting, or helpful, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you hated it, give me a big old thumbs down. I am too hot and sweaty to keep on going. Subscribe, blah, 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 blah. And if you want to support the channel and become one of these amazing people over here, you can do so by clicking that join button or going to patreon.com/podcastage and joining at the $5 tier or higher. It really does help me continue to bring you these videos. So until next time, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you in a week or so. Bye-bye. Whoa.